Coming up on Network Africa. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa tests positive for COVID-19. Mozambique records a sharp rise in coronavirus cases, plus about 5.5 million people struggle with food shortages in the Sahel region. Hello and welcome to the program this week. I'm Layo Adegoke. Let's begin today with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
A state memorial service was held for South Africa's late president, F.W. de Klerk, on Sunday, 1 month after his death. De Klerk, the last president of the apartheid era, died at the age of 85 after battling cancer. At the Cape Town event, President Cyril Ramaphosa paid tribute.
In many ways, the journey of our nation was not unlike the path that the life of F.W. de Klerk followed. Born into white privilege, as well as power, raised in the ideology of racial superiority, committed to the defense of an abhorrent and inhuman system, F.W. de Klerk would come to play an important role in our democratic transition.
Also speaking at the event was de Klerk's widow, Alita.
I want to pay tribute to this man, the love of my life, who became perhaps, and listen to this, unlikely but a committed parent to a new country. Finally, I would like to say, according to Martin Luther King, that love is the only force, capable force, of transforming an enemy into a friend. In life, there are no strangers, only friends that we have not met yet.
De Klerk is credited with supervising a peaceful transition from a white minority to a black majority government under Nelson Mandela. He shared the Nobel Peace Prize with Mandela in 1993. Veteran opposition leader Raila Odinga launched his fifth bid for Kenya's presidency on Friday, this time with the support of his former foe, President Uhuru Kenyatta. Odinga praised Kenyatta for initiating the dialogue that united them 4 years ago after a bitter dispute following the 2017 vote.
I will listen to your calls, give our conventions, give my credentials to this congregation and the nation at large. And I will spell out the people's aspirations as I understand them under the rule of Moja, and have to give my 10-point vision for Kenya on this day of December 10th, 2021. I, Raila Amolo Odinga,
Voters are due to go to the polls next August, but Kenyatta will not be on the ballot due to a constitutional term limit of 2 to 5-year terms. Peace.
Now to our main story for today. South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa is receiving treatment after testing positive for COVID-19. In a statement, his office says the 69-year-old has mild symptoms and is isolated in Cape Town. He has also delegated all responsibilities to Deputy President David Mabuza. Mr. Ramaphosa is said to have started feeling unwell on Sunday after attending the funeral of former President F.W. de Klerk. He had also just returned from a 7-day tour of Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Senegal. In the meantime, South Africa's Competition Commission has announced that the fees for COVID PCR testing is to go down by 40% with immediate effect. This is the outcome of negotiations with major test processing laboratories in the country. In October this year, the South African Council for Medical Scheme took a complaint to the Commission requesting a reduction in the fees. This has seen the fees slashed from 850 Rand to 500 Rand. We asked John Lesoalo of the Council of Medical Schemes if the outcome is as good as they expected.
This was, the price itself and seeing, the level of the economy of scale within South Africa, knowing that majority of our people, might not be in a position to pay, such a price. So we then took it upon ourselves, and also being, having the experience within the private healthcare sector. We as the CMS, we want to look at it holistically. I mean, one of our mandates, is to influence national health policy, and we see the issue of COVID being a pandemic. It's part and parcel of a national health policy. So we as the CMS, our mandate within the preamble of the Medical Schemes Act is to protect the public. And that also includes members of medical schemes. So in the broader sense of things, we as the CMS, we thought this as a national level, it could benefit, everybody and ensure that, more people test and they don't sit not knowing whether they are infected or not.
Well, let's get more on this and other stories in South Africa. Joining us now is our South Africa Bureau Chief, Betty Dibia. Hello, Betty. Let's begin with the president's health. What more can you tell us about his health at this time?
Yes, he's still presenting mild symptoms. A statement was released from his office or his home like a few minutes ago, where he still said he's still in good spirits, and he acknowledged all the tributes, that have been pouring in regarding his health, and said that this is the more reason why people should vaccinate, at least to reduce the extent of illness, as well as probably chances of hospitalization. And he said it only delays, he was meant to take the booster shot, which was approved by the Health Products Regulatory Agency last week. So he was meant to take that in about a week. So him having COVID now delays that. But he's still appealing to people, and he says he's still in good spirits and he's doing okay right now. So from what we hear from him, there's not too much to worry about. He feels he'll get over this without any serious illness.
All right, we do hope he gets over that without any serious illness. Looking at the slashing of the PCR testing, 850 to 500 Rand, is this a relief for South Africans?
It is a relief up to a point, but people never have enough of reduction in prices. So people are saying, fine, 500 Rand, this is about 17,000 Naira. Compared to what it was before, about 28,000 Naira equivalent. So they're saying, fine, but how many people can even afford the 500? But it's still 40% is quite a lot. And there's hope that probably along the line, which is one of the reasons that the Competition Commission gave why the laboratories should reduce their prices, that advancements in technology which has made every other thing more accessible, and there's more understanding of what we're dealing with, as well as the volume. The volume of people testing has increased now. Looking generally at the costs, it must have reduced for them, and they would have, of course, even with the 500, there should be a good margin for them in terms of profit. But then again, according to the officials, there were trade-offs. We don't have details of that, but here we are, 500 against 850. But the issue of compliance is still hanging out there. So we'll see. We understand from the Commission that they will be going out to ensure compliance, not just the two major laboratories that signed up to this agreement, although there's still issues to be resolved, but also the other smaller bodies that are carrying out the testing, the laboratory testing as well. So compliance is agreeing is another thing, compliance, just to protect the people a little more. So we understand they will be going out to monitor compliance to this, because they said is with immediate effect. Affordability is still an issue. Yes.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Betty.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to Mozambique, there has been a sharp rise over the past fortnight of recorded cases of coronavirus in the country after months when figures were either in decline or had stabilized. From 13 new daily cases at the beginning of the month, that figure now stands at 250, according to statistics from data collation. Over 1,000 cases have been recorded since Friday, and the large majority of these were found in the capital, Maputo, putting it at the center of what looks like a fourth wave of infections in the country. Mozambique's neighbors, South Africa, which has seen a large increase in infections attributed to the Omicron variant. Meanwhile, the Health Ministry is relying on a mass vaccination campaign to help tackle the growing problem. South Africa's former president, Jacob Zuma, has launched a new book titled The Words of a President, Jacob Zuma Speaks. This is coming just months after he was released from prison on medical parole. He was imprisoned earlier this year by the country's highest court after he refused to appear before a commission probing alleged corruption during his 9-year presidency. Mr. Zuma stepped down in 2018 as pressure over the allegations mounted. His spokesperson says he hopes this book will set the record straight, and the income from the sales is expected to go towards paying off Mr. Zuma's legal fees. Well, back here in Nigeria, the United Nations World Food Programme, in partnership with the Yobe state government, is targeting 40,000 vulnerable people in the state for assistance in 2022. This follows a prediction by the United Nations in July this year that over 1,400 Yobe residents may be at the risk of a food crisis.
A team from the World Food Programme inspecting handcrafts produced by victims of Boko Haram insurgency in Yobe State. There are varieties of items on display for the visitors to feed their eyes on, and this is made possible through support provided by the World Food Programme to the victims.
The number of people participated in this activities in 2021 is more than 25,000 beneficiaries. So across all these 3 locations. So previously these were very much vulnerable people, especially in the time of COVID, when you really don't have much opportunities. WFP, with the strong leadership, has come forward to be able to give the support to these kind of people. And now, as you can see in the exhibition over here, they have come up with the products that they have developed with their own hands.
In July this year, the United Nations estimated that over 1,400 Yobe residents may be at the risk of facing food crisis. To forestall this crisis, the World Food Programme, in collaboration with the state government, is targeting 40,000 people in the state that will benefit from food and non-food assistance in 2022.
We are increasing from 25,000 beneficiaries to approximately 40,000 in the Yobe state, increasing also the areas where we are operating, even the LGS. Currently, we are operating 3 LGS, so we are also currently considering and devising plans to incorporate more number of LGS in order to cater to these beneficiaries.
We'll ensure that the policy drive of His Excellency Governor Lamoni of Bring Back Better, of returnees, of building the resilience of those that have already returned, especially in livelihood component, has been strengthened.
For beneficiaries of the skill acquisition, it has further rekindled their hope of becoming self-reliant.
I can be able to sew on my own, and I'm getting some money from it.
Nevertheless, what the residents of Yobe State want is an end to the insurgency in the northeast region and a day when they will wake up to peace and tranquility.
Still ahead on the program. Tunisians take to the streets to demand an end to violence against women. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. As conflict stalks the borderlands of Burkina Faso, hunger is also set to be spreading. There are about 5.5 million people struggling with food shortages in the arid West African nations of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger.
Between displaced people in flocks and poor harvests, hunger threatens northern Burkina Faso. In Burkina Faso, 1 in 4 children under the age of 5, like 9-month-old Sakinatu Amadou, suffers from stunted growth. This is due to malnutrition, amongst other things.
Her mother died. I took the child to the medical center. After the consultation, the child was found to be ill.
Sakinatu's mother is dead, and she is being raised by her grandmother, whose family of 14 are among the 5.5 million people struggling with food shortages. Burkina Faso derives 80% of its resources from agriculture, but since 2015, the country has been caught up in a spiral of violence attributed to armed jihadist groups affiliated to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State organization. In addition, 2 years of scarce rainfall and the global pandemic have led to a slowdown in the economy.
Those people have lost their animals, their fields, sometimes even all their crops.
The attacks are increasingly frequent and mostly concentrated in the north and east of the country, like in Dori in Seno province. Attacks have left around 2,000 people dead and 1.4 million displaced. Displaced people have sometimes left with nothing and are unable to cultivate their land.
When they came here, they were traumatized children. Parents, when they come to us with their children, you can see an indescribable sadness. Once we welcome the children and they see that at lunchtime they have a meal that they share with other pupils, it facilitates integration. When you see these children eating with their peers, there is nothing like it. You can feel how relieved they are.
A food distribution is provided at his school, but also he set a garden up for the children.
Medics working as interns in Uganda have announced an escalation of their strike for better pay. The interns began their industrial action on the 6th of November, but they continue to work in emergencies and support some staff on hospital wards. But a letter from the Health Ministry on Saturday ordered all medical interns who are on strike to leave the health facilities where they are based within a week. Well, in response, all interns in public hospitals countrywide announced that from midnight on Sunday, they will cease all work. Officials say that medical interns had been taking industrial action since 2017 and that the government had made promises to increase their pay, but salaries have not increased. The interns need to complete a year-long placement in order to be licensed as qualified health workers. They are usually paid 750,000 Ugandan shillings per month during this period. Well, the U.S. is gravely concerned about accounts of alleged atrocities committed by Tigrayan forces in Amhara and Afar regions of Ethiopia. The State Department is urging all armed actors to stop using violence against civilians and is also urging the authorities to investigate the allegations. Last week, Human Rights Watch said Tigrayan forces summarily executed dozens of civilians in an apparent war crime in two towns under their control in Amhara region. Witnesses have described to HRW investigators that they saw Tigrayan fighters in Chena and Kobo villages kill a total of 49 civilians in separate incidents. Well, is calling on the UN to establish an international inquiry into the war crimes and also to probe the abuses by all parties in the conflict. The US has also called for the cessation of hostilities and negotiations to start without any precondition. The head of the United Nations Integrated Transition Assistance Mission in Sudan, Volker Perth, says the country's political transition is undergoing its greatest crisis to date. Perth, who is also the special representative of the Secretary General for Sudan, was speaking to the UN Security Council, saying although the crisis is not yet over, discussions on a way forward have begun.
6 weeks, Sudan's political transition has been undergoing its greatest crisis to date. This crisis is not over yet, but discussions on a way forward have begun. I have cautiously welcomed the 21 November political agreement between Prime Minister Hamdok and Lieutenant General Burhan, which was reached after weeks of domestic and international efforts to find a way out of the crisis. The agreement is far from perfect, but it can help to avoid further bloodshed and provide a step towards comprehensive dialogue and a return to constitutional order. The main indicator for a return to a democratic transition path will be the restoration of political space. This is particularly important in light of the professed goal by political and military leaders to hold free and fair elections, possibly even earlier than originally planned. The authorities will need to ensure a conducive atmosphere for credible elections, which the United Nations and other international actors can then support.
The panel reported that signatory movements took part in power sharing in Darfur and Khartoum, but implementation of the other provisions of the Juba peace agreement have been delayed. Meanwhile, the non-signatory movements, mainly Sudan Liberation Army, Abdul Wahid, have not heeded the calls to join the Juba peace agreement. The panel observed that while the national context remained unfavorable to the peace process in Darfur, the regional dynamics remained mainly favorable.
Women in Tunisia are participating in a national march to denounce crimes and violence against them. The Tunisian Association of Democratic Women organized the march in coordination with civil society associations to break the silence and demand an end to violence against women.
Tunisian Fatima Asma Montamri said she first became a victim of violence when she was 19, and then again in the year 2020. Montamri, now an activist who dedicated time to defending women's rights, wants other women survivors to know they're not alone.
When we say that violence is a curse and silence is harmful, it's not poetry. When we say that violence is a shock, this is not poetry. It is a reality. The simplest things we are exposed to is psychological pressure and insomnia, which in turn causes us depression, frustration, and violence obstructs all women in their paths.
Violence against women in Tunisia is said to be rising significantly.
In Tunisia, violence against women is rising at an alarming level. It has exacerbated dramatically during the lockdown and since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. Violence has increased sevenfold compared to the same period before the lockdown. In our centers, we receive victims of violence in Tunis and other cities. What we saw is that 2,700 women were received between 2019 and today.
Tunisian women concluded 16 days of activism for the international campaign against gender-based violence with a national march which took place on December 10th.
I have a message that I want to convey to all women in the world, especially in the Arab region. It is to break the silence, because silence isolates you. But when you speak, the first thing you know is that you are not alone. You find many women like you sharing their experiences and sharing with you your concerns.
Organized by the Tunisian Association of Democratic Women in coordination with civil society associations, protesters marched through Tunisia's capital, chanting and holding banners, one of which read, "The silence of the state is a crime against women."
And as we end the program today, Miss South Africa Lalela Mswane has finished second runner-up in the Miss Universe contest held in Israel. The annual pageant was won by Miss India, Hanaz Sandhu, with Paraguay's Nadia Ferreira finishing up as first runner-up. South Africa's government had withdrawn support for Miss Mswane in the contest to protest against Israel's treatment of Palestinians, although organizers said the pageant should not be politicized. And that's it on the program today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.